dude screaming, crying, saying, "You fuckers did it right now. I don't want to hear nothing from you self-righteous libs, Democrats. We're coming for you." Knowing damn well the person that did it, y'all know what it is. Betty.
Men, women, and children were killed in violent lynch mobs.
If that's your explanation, but
racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years.
Black America is worse than it has been.
That affects.
Okay, we gotta talk about how these Charlie Kirk diehards are straight up trying to pin the blame on black and brown folks for what went down. All because nobody's out here shedding tears over a man who once said black people were better off before civil rights since there was less crime. That's wild. And let's not forget, these are the same voices who mocked Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, George Floyd, and countless others killed in cold blood. Now suddenly they're outraged over people's reactions to Kirk? The hypocrisy is screaming. Black celebs are starting to weigh in heavy. Some tried to play diplomatic, kinda soft with it, but others, they're unloading with zero filter. 50 Cent dropped a post so ruthless it had folks shaking, and he was forced to delete it. That's how messy it got. Meanwhile, Charlie's own followers are spiraling, some even throwing out death threats like it's nothing. But when victims of the Colorado school shooting lost their lives just hours after Kirk was shot, silence. Not a peep from them. Amanda Seales called that out and said flat out she has no empathy for Kirk. She didn't sugarcoat a thing. Then you got Dr. Umar stepping in, trying to keep it balanced, warning black folks not to cheer over Kirk's downfall. But let's be real. These split reactions are telling us way more than just shock value. They're exposing just how divided America really is right now. So let's break it down, because the first big name who came crashing into this convo was none other than 50 Cent. And in true 50 style, he didn't show up with some polished PR statement or fake condolences. Nah, he went raw, dropping a screenshot of the exact moment Charlie Kirk got shot, and the caption read,
People of all kinds of stripes, people, theologians, politicians, people who consider themselves activists, all kinds of people on the conservative right talk about empathy. And they talked about empathy as if it was a pariah, empathy as if it was a moral failing. And they referred to empathy as a weakness. And it's interesting that they would call themselves Christian and be anti-empathy because that is a core tenet of Christianity. So,
want to know how I feel about this? I don't know, but I do know it's a good time to shut the F up now. That's classic 50, unfiltered and reckless. Of course, Charlie's supporters lost it. They flooded the comments accusing him of being heartless, insensitive, and even celebrating Kirk's death. Kirk's fans went wild in those comment sections, saying 50 is finished and needs to be canceled once and for all. Some even crossed the line, threatening him with messages like, "Hope you're next." That's how ugly it got. And clearly, the heat must have been real, because within hours, 50 pulled the post down, no announcement, no explanation, just gone. But here's the thing. Not everybody thought he was wrong.
In the world, there may be, but it doesn't matter. And you know why? No matter how good an individual white person may be, they have an obligation to look out for the best interests of the world.
Plenty of people defended him, saying let's not forget who Charlie Kirk really was. A man who built his entire brand on downplaying black pain, spreading racist conspiracy theories, and mocking victims of police brutality. So for a lot of folks, the attitude was simple. Don't expect sympathy for someone who never showed any empathy for us. One fan straight up said, "I'm not feeling no sympathy for someone who would call me every slur in the book. Sorry, bookie." Another clapped back with, "All this outrage is performative nonsense, yet silence follows when parents are burying their kids from school shootings." That cut deep. And just when the dust was settling, the next voice came crashing in. D.L. Hughley. And you already know he didn't hold back one bit. First, D.L. Hughley came swinging by reposting a TikTok that dragged Charlie Kirk for his own words.
But how is it that you can despise empathy, that you think it is a weakness, that you think that people are susceptible to it, like it's the cold or the flu, and that you despise empathy, but would like it when someone who you love is hurt or killed. We can either decide to be human and empathic.
The video reminded everyone of that infamous line where Charlie said it's worth having some shooting victims here and there if it means he keeps his guns. And yes, that's a direct quote from Charlie himself. He literally said UN deaths were a price worth paying. That's cold. But DL didn't stop at just exposing Charlie's own words. He took aim at Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, who stood before Congress asking for prayers for Charlie and his family. DL snapped back in the caption, "Has Mike Johnson ever done this for victims of school shootings? Did he do it for Congresswoman Angie Hortman and her husband Mark, who were killed?" The hypocrisy was on full blast. Then things got even wilder. When news broke that Trump ordered U.S. flags lowered to half-mast for Charlie Kirk, DL went off again. He reminded everyone that Trump once had flags raised back up after the Pope's death, yet we've never seen the same respect shown for innocent children murdered in classrooms. DL's question cut deep. Is it tragic? Yes. But does it deserve that ceremony? You know the answer. And he wasn't done tearing into right-wing contradictions. DL reminded folks that Charlie Kirk and his followers always mocked empathy, calling it weakness, even saying the word empathy was fake. But now, they're demanding everyone show empathy for Charlie himself. The hypocrisy is unreal. DL then doubled back, posting another scorching video, a full compilation titled Hate and Bigotry, laying out exactly what Charlie's brand has stood for all these years. And trust me, DL made sure nobody forgot it. Charlie Kirk's real legacy was getting dragged out for everyone to see. And DL Hughley had plenty more receipts.
And for the first time, there was a new school of thought that was chemically induced that made people question the very society they lived in. By 1960, the President of the United States was only 42 years old. Can you imagine? DMX is older than that. And he was going to usher in a new era of peace. He was going to avoid the Cold War. He was going to end segregation. And they blew his brains out in front of everyone in Dallas. This country was never the same.
He posted a clip of Charlie flat out denying that George Floyd was killed by a cop, while proudly admitting he wanted Derek Chauvin released from prison. That alone lit up the internet, but DL wasn't finished. He hinted at the biggest cover-up theory bubbling under the surface, that Charlie might have been taken out by the very same people he defended. DL wrote, "I just want to remind everyone, when someone shot Trump, the first words were radical left and liberal extremists, but it turned out to be someone from his own side." Then he dropped the old saying in the caption, "Remember, when you point a finger at someone, there are 3 fingers pointing right back at you." That one hit hard. Now let's be clear. DL wasn't celebrating. He was breaking down the racial and political optics, showing how violence in America gets treated completely differently depending on who the victim is. But Kirk's fans weren't having it. They blasted DL for making excuses and deflecting from the tragedy. The outrage was loud. On the flip side, plenty of people had DL's back. They said straight up that right-wing voices are just hunting for an excuse to push a race war, and they're furious that black folks aren't taking the bait. The divide was explosive. But DL isn't the only one catching heat from Kirk's supporters.
I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational.
Amanda Seales got thrown into the fire too after she made it crystal clear she wasn't going to fake empathy for Charlie Kirk. During a live chat on Instagram, Amanda clapped back at commenters demanding sympathy for him, and reminded everyone that Charlie himself never believed in empathy in the first place. Amanda Seales broke it down plain and simple. She said she couldn't have empathy for Charlie Kirk because she can't step into his shoes and nothing about his life is relatable to hers. That was her stance, and she stood on it, but the backlash came fast and ugly. Charlie's fanboys swarmed Amanda, dragging her with every insult imaginable.
That is being a Christian without the empathy is like being a sushi chef without the fish. But empathy is apparently a weakness to a lot of people, and you never know. But I've always believed and hold this now, that empathy is quintessentially human. Human. It is the core of humanity. It certainly is the core of Christianity, if you call yourself Christ-like.
And it wasn't just white conservatives. If you scroll X, you'll see plenty of black men piling on too, calling her scum, the B word, an idiot, sociopath, piece of ish, and every other slur in the book. Meanwhile, white critics were ranting that she should be denaturalized and deported, throwing in wild takes about so-called black fatigue. The hate was vicious. Still, Amanda wasn't alone. She had plenty of defenders fighting back for her. They pointed right back to Charlie Kirk's long history of racist, anti-black rhetoric and argued Amanda wasn't celebrating his death at all. She was simply refusing to fake sympathy for a man who spent his entire career spreading division and pain. One fan summed it up perfectly. Nowhere in there did she celebrate his death. Nowhere did she push hate. She said she doesn't have empathy for him. And this is the same man who said empathy was a new age word that's dangerous. He said that himself. He didn't want empathy, so why should anyone be forced to give it to him? The frustration was clear. Another person added, yes, it's sad he was killed. But does everyone have to care? No. He pushed real hate and lies his whole life. And now, just because he's dead, we're supposed to erase it and pretend he was some kind of saint? The split reactions had social media on fire. One fan nailed it perfectly, saying, I'm not celebrating his death, but I'm not mourning either, and that doesn't make me evil or hateful in the slightest. Another added, she's too real. Now I get why the media stays against her. The media didn't like Malcolm X either until I started to actually listen. Salute to this woman from across the world. She's braver and realer than your fave rapper's fave rapper. Amanda had folks standing tall behind her. But then came Dr. Umar Johnson, and people were expecting him to echo Amanda's no-sympathy stance. Instead, Umar flipped the script and decided to lecture black folks over how they reacted to Charlie Kirk's death. He said all the memes, jokes, and celebrations crossed the line. On his IG, Umar posted a full statement.
You had them prepare themselves in whatever way they would have to prepare themselves to come to battle, and I bet what I have, everything I have.
While I did not agree with Mr. Kirk's rhetoric and considered him to be an anti-black bigot, I will never rejoice at the loss of life of anyone who hasn't directly participated in the unliving of a member of the black African race. I am ashamed to see members of my community celebrating this situation. He doubled down, saying, I will never ask you to mourn the loss of an enemy of our race, but to celebrate an unliving is completely unacceptable. We know too well that the greatest victims of political assassinations in this country have been our own people. Stop laughing at the misfortunes of others and get prepared. So while Amanda was clapping back at fake empathy, Umar was scolding the culture for crossing a moral line. And that clash had social media split wide open. Political assassinations feel like they're back in the U.S. At least that's what folks are saying, and the claims are wild. Dr. Umar's followers weren't having his soft tone and clapped back hard, accusing him of moralizing the moment. One commenter even fired off, I wonder if he would have written this if they shot you. That clapback sliced right through the feeds. A bunch of people pushed back saying nobody's celebrating. They're just not mourning. The split showed up everywhere, and some fans straight up went ballistic, even typing things like, 50 lashes for you, Dr. Umar, while telling him to stop giving energy to vampires.
Whether we relate to, like, or understand a person or not. But in America, nothing is more American. Nothing is more quintessentially who we are than violence against people we disagree with, and then having a lack of empathy when we don't relate to them, when we don't like them, when they don't look like us. I don't know how you can be a Christian nation and call yourself a Christian nation, extol the virtues of Christianity, but only be empathic when they look like you. That's not Christianity. That's not humanity. That's
The internet went crazy fast, and it's obvious the chaos isn't cooling off anytime soon. Now the darker vibe. Some folks think whoever pulled this off scored their goal: more division. Whether that's a fact or just a conspiracy theory, the effect is the same. The country looks fractured, and reactions prove how easily violence gets weaponized to split people, celebs, and politicians alike. Outrage becomes fuel, and that flame spreads through every timeline. So what's the move? Can we actually step back and talk about the bigger picture, or are we already too divided to see we might be dancing to the same puppet master beat? Drop your thoughts in the comments, keep it real and smart, and I'll catch you in the next video.